All right, exciting stuff here, pull-ups. Today you're gonna learn how to do your first pull-up using these 3 killer techniques. Ready? Let's get to it. Tip number 1. So typically when I see people doing pull-ups, I would have to say the biggest mistake I see is not working on grip strength. See, when you're holding onto a bar, you gotta keep in mind you're holding your entire body weight on one of these narrow little pull-up bars, okay? You know, I mean, you got to consider you're going to be hanging from the bar for quite some time, especially if you're trying to do pull-ups for reps. And one of the worst things you could do is have a weak grip. Now, aside from having a weak grip, another problem is people sort of tend to slack off on their grip. They kind of don't pay any attention to it, or they don't have any awareness to it. So when they're grabbing on hold of the bar, what ends up happening is the bar is right here in the middle of their hand, like this, and then their hand slowly starts to slide right here, right where you can see the calluses on my hand. And that's not a good thing, because when you start sliding off the bar like that and you start to get onto your fingertips when you're trying to do pull-ups, you're actually deactivating a lot of the muscles of your upper back and a lot of your stabilizer muscles. So you're going to be losing tension, and you're going to be losing stability as well. You know, in fact, while we're on the topic, I didn't even know about this, but apparently improving your grip strength also helps increase your shoulder health as you age. And I guess the reason why is because when you're squeezing something hard, you're actually activating more muscle groups within the shoulder. And I find this kind of funny when I think about pull-ups, because a lot of people end up wrecking their shoulders during pull-ups. And this is a primal movement. I mean, we evolved from monkeys. We should be able to hang from a pull-up bar for 5 minutes. So make sure when you have the bar, when you're underneath, make sure you get a full grip on the bar. Okay? Now, there's a big argument too about whether or not you should wrap your thumb around the bar or whether you should put your thumb to the side. You know, honestly, it all depends on what you're doing. If you want to work pull-ups and you're like a bodybuilder or a power lifter and you want to strengthen your lats and maybe your upper back a little bit, I would say a thumbless grip works the best. That's just my personal preference. You know, for people doing CrossFit, you're doing kipping pull-ups, you know, the swinging motion, definitely wrap your thumb around the bar, because if you don't, you're gonna go flying off that bar and break your neck. Okay, good, moving on now. Tip number 2, you gotta pinch. Now, what do I mean by this? A lot of people, when they go up to a pull-up bar, they just, aside from, you know, gripping onto the thing, they kind of just hang there, and they kind of slack off on their upper back as well. They kind of just hang nice and loose, and they don't give themselves any tension. And when you're hanging from a pull-up bar, or when you're suspended in midair like that, remember, your body is like a wet noodle. I mean, it's just gonna flop around and it's gonna have no control. When you squeeze and tense up your muscles, it gives you more control over your movement and more control over your body. So when you're on the pull-up bar and you're just hanging there like this, like a meat hanging on a meat hook, you're literally dead weight. I mean, you're gonna have a much harder time pulling yourself up. And what I find is people with their upper backs, they kind of let their scapula just kind of move apart like this. What you want to do is you want to get the scapula to pinch back, and you want to retract them. So if I have my arms up like this, I always think of as putting my shoulder blades back and then pushing my shoulders down like this. And now I'm getting a lot less of the upper traps involved in the motion, and instead I'm focusing on more of my attention on the middle and lower trapezius, which are going to help stabilize my shoulder blades and also help prevent me from getting a shoulder injury. This is why when you see people hanging on a pull-up bar and they have really good form, they're not straight up and down when they're doing pull-ups. They're actually kind of at an angle. It almost looks like they're doing a body weight horizontal row without their feet on the ground. Now, typically speaking, this is not going to be something that you learn overnight. So usually there's a nice little neat exercise I like to do. And one of the techniques is you want to hang on to the bar and you want to work on just the pinching motion. Don't even worry about doing a pull-up. Think of it as just a straight arm pull-up. You're not trying to bend your elbows or anything like that. You're just hanging on the bar and you're just going to pinch your shoulder blades together until your body moves up like an inch, and then relax and let them go down. And then pinch again, and then relax again. And you know, do that a couple times. I usually tell people, you know, especially if they're beginners, try to do it for about, you know, 3 sets of like 10 to 15 reps each set. That usually is what I find works the best, because now you're really getting in the habit as soon as you get on that pull-up bar to pinch your shoulder blades together. Because after a while, once you start to become, better puller-upper, whatever you want to call it, eventually it's going to become a habit. It's going to be a subconscious habit that you don't even have to think about. You're just going to get on that bar and it's just going to happen. As soon as you do a pull-up, it's going to happen no matter what. All right? So get to it, get practicing, and it's going to make your pull-ups so much better, trust me. And finally, tip number 3, make sure you squeeze your glutes. Wait, what? Yeah, that's right, squeeze your glutes. Typically speaking, when people are hanging on a pull-up bar, again, this goes back to the whole tension thing we talked about in step number 2. When people are hanging on a pull-up bar, they're kind of dangling like a wet noodle, and what ends up happening is, if you look at their pelvis, they kind of break into this anterior pelvic tilt. And it looks like their body is not in a straight line, but it's a giant curve like this, like an inverse C curve. And when this happens to the body, when the spine's broken like that, is you lose all force coming from your legs. So you're basically, what happens is you're basically getting, you're pulling your whole body weight up with just your arms, and you're not getting the full benefit out of your back, and your legs and lower body are just dead weight. They're not contributing anything to the lift. That's why if you look at gymnasts, for example, if you look when they do pull-ups, when they practice for, say, the iron cross, or even for the muscle-ups, or levers, or anything like that, their bodies are in a perfectly straight line. They have their feet together, their toes are pointed in a nice straight line, and their body is really stiff. It's really rigid. And this is because when you do this, it allows you to have more muscle groups contributing to the lift. And just like when you're lifting actual free weights, the more muscle groups you have contributing to a lift, the more weight you're going to lift. It's as simple as that. And a lot of people are going to be saying, Anthony, why didn't you mention the core? Why didn't you mention abs? Because this is always something that a lot of people are concerned about. Because after all, pull-ups, there's a huge component of core in the pull-ups. Well, the truth of the matter is, the core is not just your abs. It's also your glutes, your lower back, your hip flexors, and your abs, okay? It's this whole region. It's the whole region of your center of gravity, okay? So the glutes, in my opinion, are the most underdeveloped area of a person's core, because until you learn how to actually squeeze your glutes and contract your glutes, your core will not fire. Okay, you're only going to be getting the top half of the core. You're not really going to be getting that bottom V part of the core. You know, the part that everybody wants during summertime, like, you know, right now. You're just going to be getting the top half, because when the pelvis is out of alignment like that, when it's, you know, stuck in that anterior pelvic tilt position, you know, the muscles are going to be stretched in that bottom part, and it's going to be much more difficult for them to contract naturally on their own unless you squeeze the glutes. When you squeeze the glutes, the sacrum locks into place, okay? The lower back is now stable and secure, and now the abs can contract, which allows you to do more pull-ups, okay? And it will also help allow you to do your first pull-up. Alright guys, so that is it. I really hope that these 3 tips help you to get your first pull-up and also to do many more after them. Again, remember, pull-ups, just like any other exercise, are technique oriented. You have to have good technique in order for things to work. If you start doing an exercise and you have really bad technique, you know, it may look great to muscle out a few reps, but overall time is going to hit you in the back really hard, because you're just going to be doing things with bad form, and you're going to start trying to add weight, and it's just going to wreck your joints. And not only that, but you're eventually just going to hit a wall, and you're not going to make any progress. So, you know, take the time and do it right. Just take the time right now and do it right. Don't try to impress other people. Just do things the right way. Start out on a good note, and then you'll finish on an even higher note. Okay? So guys, if you liked the video, I hope you did, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe for more content. I'm going to be pumping out a lot more. Alright? Have a good one.